I want to be a K-pop idol. It's my dream, and I believe that dreams do come true, but not all dreams are smooth and easy before they actually come true. This is my story. The story of how I became a K-pop idol as a black Nigerian girl. She couldn't believe her eyes. She pinched herself and realized she wasn't dreaming. She was actually in Korea, her dream country. She screamed out of happiness. BTS, Baby Monster, Stray Kids, ITZY, I am here for you all. People stared at her in wonder and amazement at her attitude. She ran through the city of Seoul smiling. She screamed as she saw interesting sights. She kept on screaming and jumping up, and said within herself, "Come what may, I will be a K-pop idol." She began to remember her pasts, how it took her to get to where she was. Taeyo was a pure Nigerian girl from Ondo State. At the age of 7 she was already dancing. But her family would never let her dance. They always discouraged her from dancing by telling her stories of Nigerian artists who sold their soul, and where they were. How music was bad and evil. Many words she believed then as a kid. By the time she was 15, she made up her mind that come what may she was going to be an artist, not just any but a K-pop idol. Her parents refused to support her when they heard of her dream. They reminded her that her family was the type who wouldn't recognize an illiterate as somebody. As long as you went to school, you were recognized, but if you are a dropout, an illiterate, then you remain nobody to them. These words made her feel bad, but at a point she didn't care. Then an opportunity came for her. She got a scholarship to study in one of Korean prestigious high school. This was because she scored high scores in the competition she engaged in. The Korean school prepared her a visa and passport, sponsor all the bills for her to fly to South Korea. But her family were against her. They seized the passport and visa, ordering that she would never fly to Korea for any reason which they considered foolish. Fortunately, her mum was the only one who believed in her daughter so much and always wanted to support Taeyo's dream. But her husband kicked against it so much, despite how much they had heard many say their daughter was a talented star. Her decided she was not going to let this great opportunity pass her daughter. She found a way to help Taeyo escape from the room they locked her in for days, stole the visa and passport from where her husband hid it, and helped her daughter meet up with the flight. She did this even against her husband's wishes. That was the short story of how Taeyo ended up in South Korea. She was so happy that she forgot herself and bumped into a lady. She apologized and discovered she was far from the airport. She had to run back by the time she got there. She sighted the school administrator waiting for her. She warned Taeyo not to run about as she was new to Korea. Taeyo was ushered into a car. The car had an AC, and was so cool that Taeyo relaxed, smiling to herself. She was taken to a Korean teaching school, where she would be taught Korean. As soon as she got there, she was wowed. The training center was so big. She was to learn Korean for a year before getting admitted into Han High School. Her experience at the training center was not good, nor beautiful. There were all foreigners at the center, and she wasn't the only black, which made her feel calm, but she was the only black who gained admission into Han High School, while the rest blacks were from other schools. She made friends and worked hard to learn Korean. But there was a guy who was always disturbing her peace. For the first 6 months, she was patient, but all changed the moment the guy drew a picture of her mum's nude. The one who carried her for 9 months, breastfed her, went against the family, even against her husband, just for her sake. No way, she could take anything but not this. No one messes with her mama. She rose up and beats the guy up to a pulp. Funnily, he allowed her beat him up even when he had the opportunity to overthrow Taeyo, which was strange to her. The counselors reprimanded them. They would have terminated Taeyo's scholarship if not for the fact that majority of the class justified that Taeyo was not at fault. This saved Taeyo, and the blame went to the guy whose scholarship ended up getting terminated. Taeyo was cautioned and asked to be a good girl, which she promised to be. Some of her mates who knew her dream advised her to avoid trouble like a plague. They told her being a K-pop idol came with a lot of controversies and scandals. She was warned about what could happen to her if people began to dig up her pasts and ruins her career. This got Taeyo so scared that she swore to avoid trouble. Taeyo peeped through the window and watched the guy walk out of the training center away with his bag and luggages. She began to feel bad thinking he lost the scholarship because of her. She sat on her seat almost in tears, and vowed never to hurt or destroy anyone. Unknown to Taeyo, trouble was coming not now but very soon. The guy was driven back to the airport by the administrator of his scholarship. As he awaits his flight, he gnashed his teeth in anger, vowing to destroy Taeyo one day. He smiled deceitfully. All he did was just a strategy. If not, why would he allow Taeyo beat him up? A girl, not just any girl, but a black girl anyway. He successfully had a video of her beating him up to a pulp. He knew he could use this against her, and was ready to do anything to destroy her if she succeeds, and becomes a K-pop idol. He spoke aloud, laughing to himself. You won't know what hit you when the time comes. A year training was complete. Taeyo was given a little room in an apartment, which had over 100 students, who were all on the same scholarship awarded by the school. Taeyo didn't mind whether it was small or big. All she needed to do was get admitted, audition to companies till she gets accepted. Become a K-pop trainee and debut. The day Taeyo entered Han High School was ridiculous and unexplainable. It all began with her entering the school and fascinated by how big, beautiful the school was, which made her understand that the school was indeed a wealthy one. Suddenly, one of the students pointed at her, covering his mouth in a way that scared Taeyo. His action made the other students look back, and they all gasped in shock. Taeyo just froze like a fish, too shocked, too surprised, not understanding what was happening. She was like an ice who neither melt or moved. Adding more shock to her shock, they started taking pictures of her. At first she thought the school was a celebrity school, or maybe she had entered the wrong school. Unknown to her, her picture went viral throughout the whole school like a bomb, with the same message singing that a black girl had invaded their school. Before Taeyo knew right from left, students rushed out in waves to see her. They were just snapping and snapping, while some were experimenting her, as if she was a thing of science. Some tried touching her skin to feel it. The madness around her almost made her faint. If not for the timely intervention of her guider, who knew perhaps she would have had an immediate heart attack. She followed her guider to the admission office, where she was fully registered. She was given her class details and a school ID card. She got to her class and walked in. All of a sudden some girls burst into laughter, and the class joined in, making her startled and unsure whether or not they were laughing her. The teacher in charge calmed the class and asked her to introduce herself. She introduced herself, just like she used to watch people do in K-drama high school movies. What she expected was the opposite of what she saw. No one said a dime or clapped except for a girl named Sarah, who was super excited to see a black girl, a foreigner, in her class. She had always wanted to make friends with people abroad of many race. Her dream was, one day she would visit the world. As fate would have it, Taeyo was ushered to sit next to Sarah. Meaning they were always going to sit close to each other. Sarah was so overjoyed and became friends with Taeyo. Sarah later explained to her why the school treated her the way they did. She told Taeyo, she was the first black to ever attend Han High School, which was cool, but majority of the students said cruel things about her and her color on the students' platform. This made Taeyo feel indifferent, but Sarah assured her that she would always be on her side. Sarah further took her around the school building, which was so exciting for Taeyo. As they strolled together they bumped into a girl. The girl, not waiting for any response, slapped Taeyo so hard and spits on her. Taeyo tried apologizing, but the girls who were with the girl she bumped into, these were the same girls who started the laugh at her in class, stood in front of her to cause trouble and bully her. To Taeyo's dismay, the girl she bumped into just walked away, saying nothing. Sarah warned the girls to leave them alone. She also reminded them that Baji was her boyfriend, and if they dared to hurt her and her newfound friend they would suffer the consequences. The girls seemed so scared of the so-called Baji that they hissed and walked away, running like chicks to catch up with their lady, which made Taeyo wonder what sort of school she was in. Sarah explained to Taeyo that the girl she bumped into was Kim Sasha, the most beautiful K-pop trainee from a big entertainment known as Jewel Entertainment. Sasha had fans who were crazy over her, and those girls always follow her about like fools, doing her biting as if she was a queen. Though her fans always called her Queen Sasha. Taeyo was wowed, and then it struck her, She told Sarah she would love to know more about these entertainments since she knew none due to lack of having a phone and being on social media. She also asked Sarah if there were any auditions available. Sarah was not really shocked. All she did was ask Taeyo if she really wanted to be a K-pop idol. Taeyo confirmed, explaining it was her dream. Before Sarah could say any other word, a handsome guy who was on a run fell on Taeyo, and before anyone knew what was happening, they kissed. No, oh. The guy screamed to the air as he realized what he just did. He shouted to the sky, "I am no longer a virgin lip guy." He looked at Taeyo and kissed her again, making the entire student exclaim in shock. Taeyo stared at her and asked him, "Who are you? What are you?" She herself was baffled. She was asking those questions instead of hitting him, but that was what came out of her mouth. It was not her fault. It was her mouth. The guy smiled and said to her with so much pride, "I am Han Till, but they call me Han or Handsome Han. I am a K-pop trainee at Love Entertainment who would soon debut and become a star. And now you have disvirgin my beautiful lips." Sarah scowled and asked Han to leave Taeyo alone, noting that Taeyo was not one of those girls who usually cry and howl around him begging him to date them. Han stood up, helped Taeyo up, and was about to say something when the one who had been chasing him called out his name. Taeyo's eyes met with the other guy. She was wowed. He was so super handsome and looked innocent. She could feel her heart beating as fast like the pumping machine she and her family used back home, always doing the bim bim sound. The two rivals faced each other. It was so real that one could feel the tension arising between them. Taeyo whispered and asked Sarah who the other guy was. She was already going crazy over him. Sarah told her he was Kim Jun-yeon, popularly known as JY. She also told him he was a K-pop trainee at one of the richest companies named Ball Entertainment. This made Taeyo wowed. She couldn't stop but stare at him, smiling, shining her teeth, which had been stained with kimchi. The boys would have fought or argued, but fortunately a teacher noticed the brawl, suspecting a fight might break out, asked the boys to follow him to his office. Taeyo later discovered the two boys were half-siblings, but their families were enemies. Some versions said JY dad betrayed Han's dad, which led to the death of Han's mum, and eventually made Han's family poor and wretched. Funnily enough, they were both from the same mother, same womb, while another version claimed Han's dad stole JY's mum by getting her pregnant after she had just given birth to JY in few days, making JY and his father miserable. Han dad was an ungrateful man who took advantage of JY dad kindness, and that was why Han's family were poor and wretched. Sarah told Taeyo she had no idea which version was right, but they seemed familiar and might be 50-50 true. The school bell rang and the students rushed out. Sarah and Taeyo walked home together. Taeyo's apartment was not that far from the school, but Sarah's home was far, and she needed to take a bus to her home. She had Taeyo stood in the bus station chatting and learning more about each other. The bus Sarah usually took home arrived, but before Sarah entered the bus to her place, she gave Taeyo a leaflet. Taeyo looked at it and saw that Jewel Entertainment and some other entertainments was recruiting new trainees. This was all Taeyo wanted. She thanked Sarah and was grateful. Sarah promised to follow her to the audition venue, which was the next day, which was also a public holiday. They departed waving to each other. Taeyo was so happy she met Sarah. She never had a friend for her 17 years of life on Earth, but was happy she now had one. Taeyo couldn't sleep as she kept imagining how the audition was going to look like. She closed her eyes and woke up early all the time. This continued till the time clocked 6 a.m. She rushed up, washed herself, eats little, puts on her clothes, rushed out only to see Sarah waiting at her door. Sarah said she felt that Taeyo would wake up early due to overexcitement. Taeyo was so happy that she hugged Sarah. They left to audition, starting with the first entertainment close by. They both kept on visiting companies one after the other. But all they kept saying to Taeyo was, "We are sorry, we can't accept you to be part of us." This words pained Taeyo and made her feel down. Sarah tried telling her it wasn't over yet since the last on the list was a big entertainment. She told Taeyo that she was going to audition for a big company, and she needed to be strong as the company was a global one. This was the same company Sasha was a trainee at. Taeyeo gained up strength, walked into the entertainment promising to do her best. She auditioned dancing with all her strength. The judge were so impressed that it showed on their faces. They said to her, "You are a talented dancer, but you are a black. We are a global company, but not for blacks. If you were a white, we would have accepted you immediately, but we are sorry, we don't accept blacks. You should better stop dreaming of becoming K-pop idol because K-pop is not for blacks." These words hurt Taeyeo so much that tears flowed from her eyes like a waterfall. Sasha and her teammates walked in to meet the director. Immediately Sasha saw Taeyeo. She was super shocked. She watched the security taking Taeyeo out like an animal. She gave a signal to one of her obsessive fans to take a video of Taeyeo, just to shame her to the whole school the next day. Taeyeo walked out of the entertainment feeling weak, lost, sad and lonely. She met Sarah staring at her in a confused way. She leaned on Sarah, who had no idea what had happened, and cried her eyes out. Sarah noticed the crowd had their eyes on them. She decided to take Taeyeo away from where they stood to a quiet place that was where Taeyeo explained all that transpired. Sarah was hurt and told Taeyeo not give up, that those who never gave up on their dream always got there faster than those who gave up easily. Her words gave Taeyeo a bit of strength. Sarah then pleaded with Taeyeo not give up, as there were more companies out there who would want her to be part of their entertainment. Taeyeo brightened up and decided she would try again when an opportunity came. Sarah followed Taeyeo to her home and gave her assuring words before leaving for hers. Taeyeo slept in tears and soaked in disappointment. The next day was awful for Taeyeo as she got into the school building. Students began murmuring, laughing at her. She could hear whispers saying, "The black girl wants to become a K-pop idol." Some were saying, "She was humiliated like an animal." Some said intentionally just for her to hear them, "She will never and can ever be a K-pop idol. K-pop is for whites, not for blacks." Taeyeo walked through the school corridor to her class with her feet shaking, tears filling her eyes, her heart shaking. She entered her class only to be greeted by mockery laughter from her classmates. She sat on her seat and noticed Sarah wasn't in school. She had no friend, no one else apart from Sarah. She was sad and ashamed of her color. She bowed her head down as the teachers taught them. Some wrote the term nigger on her uniform, ordering her out of the class, telling her she was a nigger, a nobody, an animal. Taeyeo walked out of the class dejected and in tears. She ran through the mocking eyes of students she met on the way. She had no idea when she bumped into Han Till. He held her hands and asked her why she was crying. Since she was crying so bad, she shouted, telling him to leave her hands alone, and ran out of his grip. Han was shocked. He looked at the students who were taking videos of Taeyeo. He shouted at them with an order, telling them to go back to their classes. In few seconds, they were in their classes. Taeyeo ran to the rooftop, sat at a corner crying profusely. Then someone dropped something on her. She raised her head and saw a handkerchief on her laps. She looked up and sighted JY staring at her. He said to her, "Crying won't solve your issue, it will only make it worse." She had no idea what to say. She just looked at him sniffing in tears. JY squatted and tried comforting her. Meanwhile, Han was at a corner but couldn't go closer since JY was there. He sighed and walked away. After a while, JY was able to comfort Taeyeo. They both walked through the school corridor. He stopped suddenly, telling Taeyeo he had a debate club to attend to. Taeyeo thanked him with smiles for the comfort he gave her. He smiled and pats her head in a funny way, telling her to always smile and not cry, for she was more pretty when she smiled. Taeyeo's head went far in a dreamland where she was on a ponytail with JY, smiling and laughing, eating and dancing, getting married and having kids. The way she stared at him made him run away from her sight. He knew she had gone far because of his sweet words. Taeyeo felt someone tapping her, bringing her back to reality. She realized JY had left. She turned around to see who was tapping her, and what she saw made her open her mouth wide open out of shock. The guy standing before her was so handsomely built, his muscles were so amazing, his face was manly, his posture was unexplainable. She had never saw a man so manly like him. Before the guy could say a word, she fainted. Yes, she fainted. Sasha walked to the communication room angrily. Her girls tried following her, but she shouted at them, ordering them away from They tried calming her down by following her, but instead she hit them, slaps them, and orders them away from her, calling them stinking fellows. The girls stood at a distance and watched her enter the communication room. Sasha saw Han sitting on a chair, as if he was awaiting her visit. "How dare you?" was the first word that came out of Sasha's mouth. She asked Han what gave him the right to actually delete the video of Taeyo being shamed out of her entertainment, which had gained thousands of views on the student platform. Han smiled and asked Sasha who she was to ridicule a fellow human being like her. Sasha warned Han never to insult her. She called herself a queen, and Taeyo a dirty, ugly garbage. Han stood up and warned Sasha never to repeat what she did ever again, and he tried leaving, but Sasha held his school jacket, ordering him back. She said to him, "You are a poor nigger while I am from a rich home. You are a nobody, and you have no right to order me around." Han got pissed and raised his hands in a form, as if he was going to blow her. This made Sasha a bit scared. He warned her and threatened her. He said to her with all the anger in him that one could feel. He was super boiling in anger. "I might be from a poor home, but don't forget why nobody dares me. And if you ever in your entire life post or try ridiculing Taeyo, I will make sure the whole world sees your true image, especially when the entertainment figures you are nothing but a pretender, and then you would never ever get to debut." He spits on her and walks away, shutting the door angrily. Sasha was so angry that she shouted out of frustrations. Her girls ran in trying to calm her. Instead she screamed on them. "Get out, ugly fools." They refused to leave, still trying to calm her down. One of them said to her, "We are your friends, let us help, please be calm, remember you are our queen." Sasha looked at them and asked who was their friend. She told them if it was her they were referring to, they should never ever call her their friend. She proclaimed, "I can never be friends with you pigs, we are not in the same class or level. Never ever call me your friend. You all are nobody to me." Still, the girls tried calming her down despite her insults, or how she treated them. Truth be told, they were all actually friends, but ever since Sasha became a trainee gaining popularity with thousands of fans, she had no regard for them any longer. She was filled with pride and arrogance. Taeyo opened her eyes and saw Sarah staring at her, smiling. She tried getting up, trying to remember all that happened. She saw the guy she met before fainting staring at her with his hands folded. She remembered she was staring at him, and then poof, everything was off. Sarah introduced him as Baji, her boyfriend. She told Taeyo that something came up and because of that she could not attend school. She had seen the video of her and asked Baji to bring her along when he was coming home. Taeyo tried smiling at this realization in order not to look weird in front of Baji. The door opened and two young men walked in. One was Han while the other was Baby. One couldn't imagine Taeyo's reaction when she heard his name was Baby. She later learned he was given the name because of his baby looks and feminine attitude. She learned he was a K-pop trainee in the same entertainment as that of Han, and the name Baby was his stage name. Sarah told Taeyo they had plans to visit the carnival, and she wanted Taeyo to come along. Taeyo smiled and accepted. The group had so much fun, ate, fight, argue, shout, fart, poo, and laughed. Taeyo had never felt happy as she felt when she saw the rest were arguing over who fart and who did not fart. She excused herself and sat beside a tree. Suddenly she felt depressed, starting to feel sad. Tears began flowing from her eyes. Sarah noticed her absence and located her. She asked Taeyo why she was crying in such a beautiful flow of weather. Meanwhile, the boys were at a corner eavesdropping their conversation even after Sarah warned them not to follow her. Taeyo ended bursting out her heart onto Sarah. She told Sarah her childhood story, how she came to South Korea, how her mother was the only one who supported her. She was scared of letting her mom down. She told Sarah how much she wanted to be a K-pop idol. She asked Sarah why the world was against her, why she was so unfortunate to be born black. She told Sarah she sometimes felt like killing herself. Sarah hugged her already in tears, trying to comfort. She begged Taeyo not to kill herself. She told Taeyo she never had a friend, how people avoided her because of her family story. She told Taeyo how she was bullied and treated like an outcast. She cried out, telling Taeyo that ever since she came to the school, she had felt the emptiness in her. She had a real friend, She had someone she could call friend, and if she died she would be left all alone. She begged Taeyo not to kill herself, telling her she would fight for her even if the world forsake her. Taeyo cried out and promised not to kill herself, and the two friends cried onto each other like babies. Baby told the boys to let the girls be for a while, and they walked away. As they walked, Han was pained. Taeyo's story hit him bad, but in a different way. While his friends were discussing how sympathetic they were to Taeyo's predicament, Han was more than sympathetic. It hit him in a way that tears were in his eyes. Baji asked Baby if there were additions in their entertainment, but Baby told him their entertainment was a small one, and was not ready to create girl groups. Han remembered something. He told them he knew someone who could help Taeyo get accepted into an entertainment. Baji was happy and decided they should tell the girls. Han explained that he didn't want the girls to know he was helping. He wanted it to be a secret between the three of them. When the boys asked for his reason, all he told them was, "It's personal." They looked at each other in shock at his statement. "Personal?" Baby and Baji exclaimed. Taeyo couldn't believe her eyes. She kept asking herself if she was dreaming or not. She was a K-pop trainee at Moon Entertainment. And she got in without stress. Baji had told her about someone he knew who was going to help her. That was how she met Sweet Mama. Sweet Mama was a strong lady, one who had the strength of a man, and the mind of a lion. She was brave, courageous and strong. She was also a K-pop trainee at Moon Entertainment. The company liked her so much that they did all they could to let her stay. How she got the name itself was a ridiculous story. When she was a kid she always loved sweets till to the extent that she could fight just for sweets. One day, the whole town was out of sweets. She got so angry that she began to protest, singing, "We want sweets, bring back our sweets." She starved, refusing to eat for days. Every day the shop dealers would run to the back whenever she was passing by, or else they got beaten up. Days later, sweets arrived, and this made her happy and peace reigned. That was how the whole town began calling her Sweet Mama. Till the extent that they forgot her real name. Sweet Mama took her to the company's administrator where she signed her contract. Taeyo was so grateful to Sweet Mama because if not for her sake she would never had the chance to enter the entertainment. Sweet Mama smiled and told her to stop thanking her. She took Taeyo to the training center where she met other trainees. They all stared at her in shock. They were never expecting the new trainee to be a black. There were younger trainees whose debut would be in years to come, while they were older trainee whose debut was soon. Taeyo was to be part of the older trainees. Even though the company was a small one in business, still they had good teachers and an amazing training center. She met the other four girls who were older trainees to debut soon. Sweet Mama introduced her to them, and she introduced them to her. Their names were Anna, Sam, Pinky and Jane. Anna and Jane welcomed her with smiles and a hug. They told Taeyo they were happy to see her. Rose looked at Taeyo and explained she was shocked to see a black, but she would try to cooperate with her during trainings. Sam walked round Taeyo in disbelief and said nothing. She went to her sit and sat down, staring in a way that Taeyo felt she didn't like her note even a bit. Pinky suddenly laughed, smiling, making Taeyo wondering she laughed out of happiness or something else. She walked towards Taeyo and asked her if she really wanted to be a K-pop idol. Taeyo replied her with a yes. "What was the word that burst out from Pinky?" She walked towards Taeyo and hugged her with smiles, and then she whispers into Taeyo's ears with anger. "You would never get to debut with us, I promise you, Blackie." Taeyo's heart was beating out of fear. Pinky let go of hugging her with smiles and told her she was welcome. She smiled, asking Taeyo to be comfortable, that this was just the beginning of her painful journey, since it wasn't easy to be a trainee or to debut. She smiled and walked to her sit, looking at her in a smiley face, but behind that smiley face what Taeyo saw was life-threatening, a deadly warning.